Hi, everybody. This is lesson 8-8, and it's more or less the same. It's actually kind of simpler. Just a couple of things. So, this is called scaling. And first, I'm going to post a video alongside this assignment that just refreshes you guys how to turn a mixed number like 1 2/3 into an improper fraction. Remember, you multiply 3 times 1, then you which is 3, and then you add the top number and keep the denominator. So 3 times 1 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, and you keep that denominator. So 1 2/3 turns into 5/3. So we're going to continue to do that type of thing. But for today's lesson with scaling, what scaling really means is they use scaling in architecture buildings and blueprints when you talk about drawing something to scale or scaling something down. In the case of multiplication, whenever you multiply, I'm going to give you two examples. I'm going to multiply a mixed number by 4. I'm going to multiply a fraction by 4. Now, when we talk about scaling, what we're really doing is whenever you multiply a number like 4 by a number that is greater than 1, and 1.5 is greater than 1, okay? Conceivably, you should get a number that is greater than 4. So let's see. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So it will be 3/2 times 4/1. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 1 is 2. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. And 6 is bigger than 4. Okay? When you multiply a whole number or and really a mixed number or a whole number, a number in general, when you multiply it by a fraction or a number that is less than 1, the number 4 is going to be less than that. So if we were to just multiply across, 3 times 4 is 12, and 4 times 1 is 4. So you would have 12/4, and 12 divided by 4 is 3, and 3 is less than 4. So there's your big difference for today. So they're going to actually suggest, although you don't have to do this, you can actually solve all these problems without multiplying, because we're going to just look at the numbers and know the trick. The trick being, if you multiply a number by a fraction, it's going to be smaller. So if you thought about it as variables, a times a fraction is going to be less than a, meaning this number is going to be less than this number after you solve it, okay? Or really, this number is going to be bigger than that one, okay? So you'll kind of see the gist. Let me do a couple of examples, and then we'll kind of you'll get into the flow. And like I said, if you can't see it, you could just do it regularly and multiply it out, but that might take you a while. Okay, so the first one that we'll try is 2.5 times 1 2/3, and we're going to compare it, meaning we're going to use greater than, less than, or equal to, and we're going to put it in that box, and we're comparing it to 1/3. So what should happen to the 1 2/3 if I multiply it by 2.5? Well, 2.5 is greater than 1. Because it's greater than 1, that means that this number, 1 2/3, or this whole entire side, is going to be greater than 1 2/3. And think about it this way. If you estimated this to 3 and this to 2, well, 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 is definitely bigger than 1 2/3. If you multiplied it out and you said, okay, I'm going to turn this into an improper fraction. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5/2. Times 3 times 1 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. You have 6/3. If you multiply this out, you would get 30/6, and that's going to give you 5. And 5 is greater than 1 2/3. So this would be the answer. So again, you can do the math and figure it out that way, or you could kind of look at the numbers and you could kind of come up with a way to, figure it out in your head. All right. Now they're going to suggest either one. They're going to say, multiply, do this without multiplying. You can multiply. Okay. You just want to get the answers right. That's the most important thing. I know that we're not in front of you. I know that this can be difficult, but you got to, use your resources, and please make sure you're using pencil and paper. Do everything on the scrap before you put numbers onto the screen, because you want to make sure you have everything out before you plug everything in. So this one we're going to do 1/3 times 2 2/5. And we want to find out, is it greater than, is it less than, or is it equal to 2 2/5? Okay, so what's happening here? Well, first we're comparing the 2 2/5. So we're multiplying 2 2/5 by a fraction. That's a number that's less than 1. And because the number is less than 1, that means that we should have a number that's smaller. So theoretically, the answer should be less as well. But let's see. I'm saying that the 2 2/5, this number is going to end up being smaller than this one when we multiply these two together. Let's figure it out. Let's do the 1/3 times, 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. That's 12/5. 1 times 12 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15. Well, sure. 12/15 is definitely less than 2 2/5, because that's what we just turned this whole thing into this. And this is definitely less than that. So there you go. That's really the whole gist of the lesson. It's kind of easy. You just, really just going step by step and following. If you can do it in your head, great. If you can't see that, it's fine just to do the math out. I know that some of these questions, it's taken some of you a long time. I appreciate you working hard at this. This was a good way for us to start, because the division is not that difficult. So as far as learning from home using these online videos, I think you guys are doing a good job so far. The grades have been good. Okay, let's try 3/5 times 4 4/5. And now we're going to compare that to regular old 4 4/5. So here's what we're saying. We're multiplying 4 4/5 by a number or a fraction that's less than 1. So that means that we should have a number, our product should be less than 4 4/5. So it should be less than this number. We can do it out and figure it out, or we could take the guess. We're going to say it should look like that. Let's check. If I did 5 times 4, I would get 20. 20 plus 4 is 24. 24 over 5 times 3 over 5. Okay, now this is something, hey, you could be able to do this in your head. 24 3 times, what is that going to give you? Let's see, 24 times 3, 72. So you have 72. Let's get rid of this, so I don't confuse anybody, over 25. Okay, now 25 goes into 72 2 times. It doesn't go in 3 times, so right away it's going to be 2 and something. Well, we know that something is 22 25ths. And that's definitely 22 and 22 25ths. 2 and 22 25ths is less than 4 4/5. Okay. So, and again, if this was difficult, I just did 25 times 2 is 50. And then 72 minus 50 will give me 22 left over. Okay. So again, it is possible to do this in your head. In fact, it's kind of easy. But you could do it out, because doing it out, multiplying it is good practice. Because we really only have one more lesson after this, which is the problem solving lesson, and then we're done with this chapter. All right, so let's try. They gave me colors now. Let's try 1/2 times 1 2/5, and let's compare it to 1 2/5. Okay, so what I'm saying is we're comparing the 1 2/5 on each side. It's either going to be greater than, less than, or equal to. And we're multiplying 1 2/5 by a number that is less than 1. So conceivably, this number should be less than 1 2/5. Let's try it out. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 10. So 10/5 times 1/2 is 10 over 10. Hot dog. That's equal to 1. Well, 1 is definitely less than 1 2/5. Pretty simple. Just a couple of extra things here that I'd like to remind some of you guys. Please, when you're doing I know that it's a little confusing sometimes with the inputting of the numbers and everything. Please, please, please do everything on scrap paper. We're not giving everything crazy due dates. If you guys need another day to do things, you can do it. as long as you're just checking in every single day and doing it. And I would say there's 20 out of 23 of you that have been on every single day and you're doing every single lesson. And Miss Razza and I both really, really appreciate that. Okay, so I hope all your families are well and safe. And this is Mr. Fossey. I have a little bit of extra time, so I can say that I'm giving my shout outs. I'll give one out to Maria. I miss torturing Maria. Hi, Maria. And Maeve O. I think who else needed a shout? I think I did Dylan already. Who else asked for shout? I think that's pretty much it. We'll hopefully see you guys pretty soon. If not, stay in touch with us online and talk to you soon.